Right, good evening everybody. We'll take our cue from the clock. Welcome to the July Cabinet meeting. Do some housekeeping. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices via the stairs. Please do not use the lifts. Assemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise when it is deemed safe to return to the chamber. Please switch off or turn to silent your mobile phones and do not make or receive calls while this meeting is in progress. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public. The meeting will also be recorded and be subsequently available on the internet. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? Okay, the following members have asked to speak under Council Procedure Rule 20.1. Item 4, Councillors Garner and Bayford. Item 5, Councillor Bayford. And item 6, Councillor Davis. No other members wish to speak? Thank you. We're all here, so there are no apologies. Are there any declarations of interest in the items of business on the agenda this evening? I'm not seeing any, thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting, there's a summary of recommendations and decisions of the Cabinet meeting held on the 15th of June 2023. Copies attached to the agenda pack. Propose that we take the minutes as read. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Yates, thank you. Do members agree? Agree. Thank you. Item 4. Purchase of 42 homes at Spitfire Green for affordable rent. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Leader. I've spoken seemingly endlessly about our new housing strategy over the last few weeks, and to bring this item to Cabinet following very positive council and overview and scrutiny meetings feels incredibly special. For context, for those who haven't been present for those meetings, Council has recently approved an accelerated affordable housing development programme of at least 400 new homes, constructed or acquired by 2027, and these properties are among the first tranche of homes that we will be delivering. To achieve this, we will be using provisions under Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. Section 106 provides an opportunity for local planning authorities to negotiate with housing developers for the provision of affordable housing on qualifying sites. The Council's local plan policies set out a preference for these requirements to be discharged through the provision of affordable homes within the application site. Delivering genuinely affordable housing as part of any proposed or delivered development in Thanet is essential. Section 106 agreements require developers to transfer completed homes to an affordable housing provider at a value that makes an affordable rent viable. This means that the developer effectively provides the necessary subsidy in the form of a discounted purchase price below market value. However, as markets change, so do delivery models. And increasingly, housing associations are choosing not to take on smaller numbers of units, which runs the risk of these homes being lost. Failure to secure an affordable housing delivery partner can lead to developers requesting that the S106 agreement be amended to provide a commuted sum in lieu of on-site homes. Our need in Thanet is for affordable homes and for developers to deliver the affordable housing we require for residents. Ensuring that these homes are retained is vital. Officers have been contacted by a number of developers who have been unable to secure an affordable housing provider partner to purchase Section 106 units and deliver affordable homes. Keeping these homes within our portfolio is essential, and provisions to support the retention of these homes have been incorporated into our overall strategy. In respect of the current proposal, officers were contacted by BDW Homes, who are required to deliver 42 new affordable homes as part of their development at Spitfire Green in Westwood. This requirement is set out in the Section 106 obligations for this development. They have been unable to secure an affordable housing provider to deliver these homes, and we are ensuring that we are in a position to retain these homes and deliver the housing that residents need. This purchase has been assessed against our detailed viability assessment tool to ensure both financial and strategic viability. We developed this to inform a go or no-go decision for individual proposals. It is essential for the viability of the overall HRA programme that only schemes that have a positive impact on the HRA business plan are delivered. Every proposal will be assessed against these requirements, and only those that can support the needs and ongoing growth of the housing portfolio will be accepted. To be considered viable, schemes need to show an overall surplus over a 30 or 50-year timescale, depending on the duration of any borrowing. The assessment tool operates as a mini business plan and takes into account all relevant costs and income, including rent income, capital costs, professional fees and project management, the costs of borrowing and management, maintenance costs and depreciation over the lifetime of the homes. A provisional offer of £5 million has been made to the developer and, subject to contract, legal due diligence, formal valuation and full approval, this offer has been accepted. It is proposed that the new homes are let in accordance with the Council's adopted allocations policy. It is also proposed that they are let at a genuinely affordable rent, in line with the Council's approved tenancy strategy. Our tenancy strategy defines an affordable rent as a rent that is no more than 80% of the local market rent and does not exceed the relevant local housing allowance rate. Our aim is always to ensure that rents are as affordable as possible, and that will remain our priority. This is a genuinely progressive housing model that allows housing to work to produce more housing for our area as part of a strategy that protects affordable housing and ensures full delivery of all affordable homes produced. Both housing and finance have worked tirelessly to deliver this strategy, and I am hugely proud both of their efforts and to be able to recommend this to Cabinet and move the recommendations set out in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Yates, I think, just picture at the post, Councillor Keane. Speaking under 20.1, Councillor Garner.
Thank you. I'd like to start by congratulating Councillor Whitehead and the housing team on the recently approved Accelerated Affordable Housing Development Programme. It's a programme we support, and I'm glad that we've been able to put together this proposal with Barratt Homes to make sure that the 42 affordable homes at Spitfire Green become part of that programme and remain available to be offered to residents currently on the Council's waiting list for affordable accommodation. While supporting this proposal, it does raise a few questions about the number of affordable homes being made available by housing associations as a result of the ongoing house building programme. As we know, when planning applications for developments of over 10 units are approved, 30% are built as affordable homes, a mix of shared ownership and rental. The associated Section 106 agreements require developers to transfer these homes for rent when completed to an affordable housing provider to be offered at an affordable rent. As you mentioned in your report, officers have been contacted by a number of developers who have been unable to secure an affordable housing provider partner to purchase Section 106 units and deliver affordable homes. So, to get a better understanding of the situation, could you let us know the answer to a few questions? So, do we track the number of affordable homes which should have been delivered to housing associations each year based on approved planning applications? And how many should have been delivered during each of the last 5 years? Do we track the number actually delivered and which housing associations take them on? And how many have been delivered during each of the last 5 years? So, as you've also mentioned, failure to secure an affordable housing delivery partner can lead to developers requesting that the Section 106 agreement be amended to provide a commuted sum in lieu of on-site homes. So, finally, over the last 5 years, how many expected affordable homes have not been delivered, and as a result, how much has been provided as commuted sums in lieu of these homes? Thanks. And there's obviously a few questions there that I shall provide in writing afterwards if
Yes.
I think you get the general gist of what I'm asking.
Right, I'll do my very best with this to get in order. So in terms of whether we monitor the affordable housing delivery in terms of housing associations, yes, we do. We also publish figures related to where we are in terms of that production. So at the moment, we produce 61% of the affordable homes within Thanet. I can't give you the breakdown for the individual housing associations, but just to give you to demonstrate that at the moment we are the primary provider for Thanet in terms of affordable housing. We do have regular contact with the major housing associations and providers that work in this area, and we know the extent of their portfolios. So again, that is information that we do collate and follow up. In terms of what's expected and what's delivered, there's a couple of aspects within that, because you'd be looking at both the planning arrangements, because as we know, unfortunately, when developments are granted, we could agree 30%, but then when it comes down to viability assessments at the end, it could then be reduced. So there's potentially two figures you're looking at there, the ones that we initially went for, and the ones that developers fully agreed to and were agreed to be viable, which may not have been delivered for whatever reason, but I'm happy to look into that. Trying to remember the next question.
I think it was about how many haven't been delivered.
Yeah, I think, so to get to the heart of what I think you're concerned about, it's not, to my knowledge, that over the past 5 years we have seen a significant drop. It's simply that housing associations are tending to deliver in a different manner. So whereas before they would take on smaller amounts of units in various different sites, they're now preferring to take on much larger numbers or create their own developments entirely. So that's why when we've been talking about this, we have been talking about it as additionality, because it's not that we expect there to be a drop in terms of what our housing provider partners are delivering. It's simply that they're delivering it in a very different way now. And a lot of that is to do with market pressures and choices in terms of the way people manage their own associations. It's simply that while there is a seeming state of flux in terms of how well Section 106 is functioning, it's important to make sure that those houses are taken up rather than disappearing. But yes, if you'd like to send the questions through, I'm more than happy to find the answers with housing. That would be great, and then I can be very, very thorough. Thank you, Councillor Garner.
Okay, thank you, Councillor White. I think you did quite well there, actually, given the number of questions that was thrown at you. Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Whitehead, for the report. I very much support the principle of purchasing these 42 properties, which will be a much-needed addition to TDC's housing stock. But I would like clarification on a point. The report states that acquisition activity has within it inherent risks. Can you describe and quantify these in respect of this purchase, please? Thank you.
So, to explain the inherent risks part of it, that's why I make a point of thanking both housing and finance, because finance have had to do a huge amount of work on this, which I'm hugely appreciative of. So, as you'll know, whenever we bring anything to Cabinet, we look at the associated benefits and risks related to whatever it is that we're proposing. So it isn't simply that there is a risk related to this, and this is the only item that we ever consider in terms of risk. Everything we do as a Cabinet is always risk assessed. So in terms of this project, it's simply that we are delivering at scale, so we have to consider the rent streams that come in. We have to consider if there are likely to be any changes in the local housing allowance. We have to consider whether there are likely to be any further changes in inflation. We need to consider the ongoing costs in relation to the upkeep of properties in terms of how we need to bring properties up to standard in terms of our housing portfolio and ongoing energy saving costs and the legislation that's coming forward relating to that. So it's simply about ensuring that every single item that we bring in terms of a group of properties bring forward actually balances up within the business plan, so that we're not adding something in simply for the sake of additionality and simply because we want to provide. We have to know that the finances stack up to make that a viable investment. I'm happy to hand over to Mr. Blundell because at the moment I'm not really finance, so I'm just...
Thank you, Councillor. I think you've captured it all very well. Within any modelling, there's always some assumptions we have to make, and the further you go out into the future, the more uncertainty there is, whether it be rental income streams or the cost of maintaining properties. So we have break-even points modelled across the acquisition programme here in terms of when we think it's going to start generating a surplus and repaying the initial investment. That is subject to change depending on what happens in reality versus our expectations. As they're set out in the report, though, these are risks that we can absorb within the whole HRA, so it's not something that would expose the council to extreme financial risk, but it's more to do with the uncertainty in terms of the parameters that we're dealing over the longer term. Hope that makes sense. Happy to put some stuff in writing or to talk to you about further.
My understanding that there were increased...
Thank you.
Okay, members, thank you. It does seem to me that the risks in this case, when we compare with the risks of the future local government funding against our budgets, are probably smaller. Yeah. The biggest problem we've got is uncertainty about the whole financing of local government for the future. Okay, members, Cabinet's asked to agree to the purchase of 42 new affordable homes using the additional capital budget approved by Council on 13th of July and the letting of these homes in accordance with the Council's allocations policy at an affordable rent as set out in the Council's tenancy strategy. Assuming nobody else wants to say anything, because I should have given you the opportunity. Do members agree? Agree. Thank you. And we move on to item 5, which is Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Leader, and hello again. I'm also very glad to bring this item to Cabinet to propose the usage of the Local Authority Housing Fund within our larger programme of genuinely affordable housing production. As with our overall housing strategy, I've talked about this proposal at length across Council and overview and scrutiny. Bringing it back to Cabinet after many useful discussions feels very positive. As I have said previously, we need to support the refugees supported by the LEHF in a way that provides reliable housing to ensure that we are properly supporting those who have experienced war and disruption. A previous lack of foundational approach at a central level has meant that it has proved difficult to do that. This fund goes some way towards remedying that situation. The Local Authority Housing Support Fund was created to enable local authorities to purchase properties in their area to accommodate both Ukrainian and Afghan refugee households for an initial period of 3 years. As a council, we do our best to house those who are most vulnerable, and we do well in discharging that duty, and will continue to do so. We have 3,470 properties within our housing portfolio, all general needs housing, and all used by residents who have been on our housing list. What is proposed here, relating to the very specific requirements of a particular governmental fund, is the purchase of 9 homes, or roughly 0.25% of our overall housing portfolio, all of which will eventually become general needs housing for the current usage of refugees from both the Ukraine and Afghanistan, who have arrived here as part of government-led schemes. There are 2 final points that I would like to make relating to this item. Firstly, as human beings and as a council, we have a duty to do our best to support those in need and those who are vulnerable. This grant, partial though it is, supports us to fulfil that moral duty and provides specifically for individuals who are protected within our Equalities Act commitments. Secondly, the fund also supports the growth of our housing portfolio in general, which allows us to support all residents in the long term. Due to the grant, these homes will already be helping to support the purchase and creation of new homes from the point of purchase via rent contributions. I am especially aware of the issues surrounding rent inflation in Thanet and the need for social housing, as evidenced over many years of council debates, and our ongoing and future build and acquisition plans reflect this need. Our ambitious social and affordable rent programme, aiming to deliver over 400 affordable homes in the next 4 years, as previously discussed tonight, reflects this. However, provision for one in this case is emphatically provision for all, and is a significant contribution to our housing infrastructure, and it is important to consider the full scope of both the fund and our contribution to it, in a moral and a financial sense. I would like to thank Housing wholeheartedly for all of their work relating to this project, and I move the recommendations set out in the report.
Thank you, Councillor White. Do you have a seconder? I think Councillor Yates won again, even though he held back. Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Leader, and again, thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Again, I support this purchase through the Local Authority Housing Fund, but I'd be grateful for clarification on the two types of tenancy that may be offered to the Ukrainian and Afghan families. Who makes the decision on which will be offered, and what is the implication of each option? Thank you.
I'm very happy to answer that because it's something that has been occupying me quite a lot recently. So when we were first sent this fund, as was discussed at overview and scrutiny, the wording of the fund specified the 3-year limit. Mm-hmm. It was very specific and confusingly so. So I've looked into the background of that, yeah, and it's linked, unfortunately, to the central government decision to only issue 3-year visas. So they are not issuing indefinite right to remain at this point, which I think is a shame, bluntly. So our two usual forms of tenancy are licence and a lifetime tenancy. We want, and we wanted to be able to offer lifetime tenancies to those who needed to leave and want to stay. We haven't had, to my knowledge, in that I have literally just kind of done a deep dive on this, and we haven't had any information from government regarding this. So we've had no guidance from government as to which one we should be offering. I think other councils also haven't had guidance on that front. It appears, according to the terms of the visas, that it will be likely that central government are expecting us to issue licences, mm-hmm, but we are going to have to go back to them and ask them what they want us to do, because what we would like to do is be able to offer a right to stay. But if central government isn't offering a right to stay, it makes it a challenging situation. So I'm more than happy to get more information on this, because I don't like the idea that we're not able to offer a lifetime tenancy. So.
Thank you. Would you mind just clarifying what the implications of each option are?
Yeah, so a licence is what we usually use for temporary accommodation, mm-hmm, so it's simply a licence to use that property, mm-hmm, for a prescribed time. So for temporary accommodation, we generally need it until we find somewhere more permanent for an individual. For lifetime tenancy, it's kind of, that's what it says on the tin. So any tenant who comes into our overall portfolio, so from our housing list, would eventually be offered a lifetime tenancy so that they know that they have a guaranteed home.
And that could be passed on?
There are different rules now in relation to succession, but I can send those through as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if Ash wants to know.
No, that, I mean, we were talking about this before, weren't we? That's, we're not sure which tenancies we should be offering. I've been asked by like, other local authorities what we're going to do. Councillor White said we were looking at last time, but potentially we can't.
Yeah, I think the concerns of some people is whether these could, with the succession, this could be passed on and passed on, in fact, never come back into our housing stock.
No, within the tenancy strategy, the Local Act in 2011, so we're going to pass on to a partner, wife, not a child.
Right, so it can't be passed down there. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any members have anything else to say on that? No? Thank you. So Cabinet's being asked to agree to purchase 9 units using the 1.19 million of Local Authority Housing Fund grant and 1.25 million HRA match funding included in the HRA capital programme. Do members agree? Agreed. That's agreed. Thank you. And we move on to item 6, which is representation on outside bodies for 23-24. and that's me. Members will recall that Council agreed the list of executive appointed outside bodies and the number of councillors to be appointed to them at the annual meeting on the 18th of May, and that list is attached to Annex 1 to the Cabinet report. As part of the updates of council representatives on these bodies, we're bringing forward a list of such bodies as agreed by annual council and seek Cabinet consent to nominations of members on these bodies as put forward in Annex 1. Although the council actually agreed a longer list, we have not appointed to all of the bodies, as we're now aware that some of them have changed their membership requirements or no longer wish to be considered as outside bodies, and this issue will be addressed at the next council meeting just to tidy that up. So the recommendation, and I propose, that Cabinet agrees the list of nominations to the executive-related outside bodies as shown at Annex 1 of the report.
To speak.
Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Keane. Yes, Councillor Davis, you come in after it's been moved and seconded, and you can come in now. Thank you.
My apologies, Chair. I was getting a bit overexcited there and got ahead of myself. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate all those on these bodies because although, as the leaders said, some are more relevant than others and so on, some of them do some very important work. Not least the Local Government Association Strategic Aviation Specialist Interest Group, which I'm pleased to see the leaders joined. They have an objective to, I'll quote, ensure that UK aviation policy is implemented in a manner that reconciles economic, social and environmental issues. And I think that's an admirable set of objectives given the situation we've experienced with Manston in recent years. Hopefully the evidence presented there will also lead to a more positive view from the leader. But with regard to these committees, there's also a very important one that is doing excellent work, which is the Manston Skills and Employment Board. I have a concern, which is why I wanted to address this, and it saddens me in some ways to have to ask this. But only a few weeks ago, Councillor Yates was campaigning actively, and it was publicly criticised by many, including myself, for publicly campaigning and running and actively raising money for a campaign to prevent the reopening of Manston. So what I'd like to ask him is, has he had a Damascene conversion, or how will you reconcile that position, Councillor Yates? Given the objectives of the Manston Skills and the Skills and Employment Body is to form a bridge with the community, specifically for the opportunities at Manston.
Thank you, Councillor Davis, for your question. I'm not sure that I really understand it. I would have thought that the stated purpose of the body was about developing skills. I wouldn't have thought it was about whether the airport opened or not. If Councillor Yates does, do you want to comment, Councillor Yates?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. So, what I kind of can bring to the table is I've completed a Warwick University MBA focusing on global energy. Within that, we looked in different technologies, hydrogen, coal, gas, wind, renewables. And as someone who's worked in the renewables industry 12 years, I've seen how technology develops. For example, a lot of the wind farms, offshore wind farms, use marine gas diesel to go offshore, and that actually produces lots of emissions. So within my role previously, I've worked to try and transition some of those emissions away, so that we're investigating using biofuel, investigating using hydrogen. So I do feel that whatever happens next, I do have the kind of educational and operational background to be able to ensure that if the airport does happen, that they do stick, Manston does stick to their net zero targets, and hopefully use my skills and experience to make sure whatever happens next is in the best interest for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Yates, and I think it's also important that the people who are appointed to outside bodies do accurately reflect the views of the council. And I think, you know, we had an election, and the election returned a Labour majority. It returned a number of Green councillors who are not particularly supportive of the airport. So I think it's important that we send people out from this council to speak on behalf of the council who represent the majority view. that's what this selection chooses to do, it attempts to do. And I mean, if you look back at the executive appointments from a year ago, I think every single one of them went to a Conservative councillor. And at that time, of course, Conservatives didn't have a majority, but they nevertheless chose to take every seat. I'm sure that we'll be more representative of the council than perhaps that was. Right, members, you're asked to agree the list of nominations to the outside bodies as shown at Annex 1 of the report. I'm proposing that. Is everyone agreed? Thank you. Yeah. That concludes the business for tonight's meeting, so I declare the meeting closed at, what shall we say, 7:30. There's the clock. And the live stream of the meeting will now end. Thank you very much for your attendance, everybody.
We have to start and end every meeting now with a clock. Yeah, definitely gearing up, isn't it?